don't have a
We
projector.
can't we just,
That's our projector, but that's our screen, but we don't have a projector.
Jessica, can we just unplug that? Are we gonna lose, I guess, will we lose people? Or we'll just lose the display?
We're live, and yes, you'll lose the display. We'll still be on, but you won't see us.
So we can pull it for the purposes of showing their presentation.
Okay.
You won't hear them either.
Yes.
You'd have to plug up to that.
Doug, do you have another HDMI cable?
The only one we have is the one that we normally, when we plug into where you're plugged into.
Are you showing us something other than?
We're not going to show you anything. Right now, we don't have the ability to show you our PowerPoint.
Is there, what are you going to show us on there different than what we have in our packet?
You have the packet. It's the same.
Okay.
Are we good with just the packet? Y'all
Yeah,
good?
I'm fine with
Yeah, I've got my packet here, hard copy, if somebody wants to see it when we go through it. But you got the ability to step us through it, right?
Yeah, we've got our same presentation that comes out of your packet.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Okay.
I think we'll just go that way.
Sounds good.
All right. Who would like-
Okay, we're live.
Thank you, Justin. Who would like to lead the invocation? Anybody?
Let you volunteer.
Huh?
Let you volunteer.
All right, I'll do it. I got it. All right. Okay, it's 6 p.m., so I'll call the meeting in order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, August the 11th. If you would, at this time, we'll rise for our invocation, call the Bible pledge. Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening and ask for your blessings over this body, this community, in our country. There's a lot going on, and we certainly need you right now. We pray a special blessing on our first responders, law enforcement, and those serving our military. This is a great community, and we need your guidance and wisdom so that we never lose sight of the wonder that we have in this community. These things we ask in your name. Amen. Join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Okay. First on the agenda is our public hearings. And so right now we'll open the public hearing for rezoning 2020-04, applicant John Housley, representing Tyrone Jefferson and Southeast Diversified Investments, requested rezoning of 519 U.S. Highway 19 from R5 to C2. It's 0.513 acre property located east of Lincoln Park. And with that, do we have any? We have no one signed up for the public hearing for the specific rezoning?
You have the applicant.
We have the applicant.
We have the applicant. So, and the applicant is Mr. Housley?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does Mr. Housley have anything that he would like to say to us before we close the public
I
hearing?
believe so.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Housley. This is Meg Gibbs with Upson County Building and Zoning. Would you like to make an opening statement? We're at the public hearing. Okay. So I'm going to pick on speaker on my cell phone, so it might not be there.
The mic should be live. Check the mic. Can you turn it on?
Okay. Okay, Mr. Housley, this is Chairman Allen. You got up to 5 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to say to the commissioners?
Certainly, I am, yes, sir, I'm sorry, there's a delay. I'm going to cut off my sound. So I did that now. Yes, I intend, I think first of all, the actual address of the facility is 1200 Highway 19 It's just next to, I believe it's JD Auto Body Shop, but it is it's basically right now 2 self-storage buildings, which I intend to upgrade and repair. They really are actually in decent condition. I need to clean the lot, repair the fence, and there's a trailer, an office trailer of sorts that's there that I need to either move or tear down. It's in disrepair and it's not really functional. And simply just make the facility an operating self-storage facility. I currently have it under contract to purchase from Trone Jefferson, who is, his organization owns it, and I'm representing him in this matter. The purchase is contingent upon the rezoning, and so as soon as it's rezoned, I will be able to go ahead and purchase the property and do the cleanup, and like I say, just simply operate it as a self-storage facility. I'm a local guy, not somebody out of town. I live up on North Bethel, and just here trying to improve the community with my own investments.
Okay, sir. Appreciate it. And so at this point, we have no other comments from anyone else. So at this point, entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Public hearing is closed. So with that,
So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to combine the two since they're the rezoning and the special exception because they are very much intertwined. And so to begin, the property owner, as he stated, is Southeast Diversified LLC, and it's being represented by John Housley. And it is located on 1200 US Highway 19 South, and it is wishing to rezone from R5, which is single-family residential, to C2, which is general commercial, for the purpose of allowing to operate the mini warehouses that already exist on site. And mini warehouses are allowed to exist in C2 only through special exception. And so the property is 0.513 acres. It contains 2 metal mini warehouse buildings and a metal office-style building. County records indicate that the mini warehouses were erected in 1990, and they lie, as he stated, on the southwest corner of the intersection of US Highway 19 South and Bluegrass Street, and it is located just east of Lincoln Park and adjacent to the City of Thompson city limits. Staff can find no occupation tax history on this property. And as stated before, it's less than 300 feet away from the Thompson city limits, so it was reviewed by the Joint Planning Commission on July 13th, 2020. And I can jump ahead, and the Joint Planning Commission stated that they recommended approval with the conditions that the metal office building be removed, and that the grass and just general maintenance of the property is upheld. The surrounding property, so north, you have commercial structures and a convenience store, which is C2, you have across the street, you have single-family residential, but it's also C2, part of it is. Then you have single-family residential commercial to the south, so R5 and C2, and then single-family residential to the west, which is R5. And so, it is important to note that the property currently doesn't meet some of the C2 development standards, so it's an undersized lot, and the front and side yards and rear yards do not meet the current C2 development standards. So, general review standards. So, would the rezoning have an adverse effect on the insurance rating of the county, overtax the public utilities and streets presently existing to serve the site, have a substantial adverse impact on the environment, including but not limited to drainage, soil erosion, sedimentation, flooding, air quality, and water quality and quantity, and then have a substantial adverse impact on the environment, including but not limited to drainage, soil erosion, sedimentation, flooding, air quality, and water quality and quantity, and the standards for review are also located in your special exception packet. And so staff propose, it is consistent with the other zonings with the surrounding area. And so there's a repair garage to the south and a convenience store, which are both C2 buildings. And so staff sees this as an appropriate use for the area, particularly this one triangle block. states that while C2 is appropriate for the zoning, the Upson County's primary, US Highway 19 is Upson County's primary commercial corridor, but commercial nodes should be planned. Strict commercialization should not be permitted. And finally, staff recommends approval of the following requests. C2 is an appropriate zoning district for this location. C2 is consistent with the adjacent C2 zoning of the city of Thompson, and R5 is not an appropriate zoning for this property. As stated earlier, the Joint Planning Commission stated approval with the conditions of the removal of the metal office building and that the grass be cut and maintained. And Planning Commission also recommended approval 5-0 with the same conditions as the Joint Planning Commission, removal of the metal office building and the grass being cut and maintained.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Is there?
I got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
We need to get a motion for
Well,
discussion.
So is there a motion? I guess, consider that this is a rezoning and a special exception. I mean, I guess we'll handle them separately. Because the special exceptions is not going to be relevant unless we approve the rezoning request. So is there a motion on the rezoning request?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
should we, special exception is pending, I mean, if we make a motion and approve the zoning, and then we don't approve the special exception, it's either way. The issues that I don't know what Commissioner Jones has, but mine are more or less with the special exception meeting, it doesn't meet the zoning on the current requirements, is that correct? Setbacks,
Yes, it does not meet the setbacks.
Well, if y'all will indulge, I guess, I mean, we'll just kind of take Robert's rules and put it aside for a minute and just have a discussion because these two are linked. I mean, you know, so I think we still need to vote on them separately, but if we're not going to do one or do one and not the other, then what are the concerns?
well, I mean, obviously, it doesn't meet our C2 requirements for setbacks, if you look at the site, but the big concern of that is I don't know necessarily this concern, but I mean, unintended consequences. And I'll remind you guys of this, because I get a phone call often. Woodland Highway, Old Chirino's Restaurant, unintended consequences. I get calls, unintended consequences. Okay? Or a cover yard, right in the middle of 3 homes. So I just want to make sure that by approving this, and I think I'm okay with approving this, but I think there needs to be some stipulations on it. And I guess my question was going to be for Doug or for you, is can we go to the point of putting stipulations on it that it can only be
What it currently is?
what it currently is and can't be, I mean, because it doesn't, nothing else, I mean, it doesn't meet right now. It's there, and it's an existing structure. We have an opportunity to possibly get it cleaned up and make it work. But a year from now, if he sells it and somebody decides they want to put a recovery yard there, we're right back to the Woodland Highway situation. So I think we should be careful about the stipulations, or not putting stipulations on stuff, especially on our corridors. Is that?
Yes, it is appropriate. You've got a provision probably in your staff report that talks about conditional approval, and you being Upson County has many times limited the type of uses that's specifically discussed in your ordinance. So yes, you can make that as tight or as loose as you want, recognizing that, you know, they decide to go to any other use and they've got to go back through the rezoning process. But yes, you can condition your approvals, absolutely.
He added more than I would have added, but he hit the point I wanted. I wanted to make sure that it didn't get walled in and turned into a towing yard or impound lot or something else, because there's residential that backs right up to, I mean, they're right there at it. And it's, if it gets cleaned up and people are using it, that's a whole lot better for the neighborhood, in my opinion. But I don't know about the rest of the parcel that isn't two storage unit building. You know, are they going to rent out space to park tractor and trailers? Are they gonna rent out space to park RVs or boats or cars? Or that's my only other concern.
Sir, there was a question there you can answer. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. One of the Commissioner Jones's concerns are that using the area inside the gate to do other storage type things like boats, RVs, those types of things. Is that, you have no intention to do anything like that, or do you?
Well, I'm open to, I don't really have any intention, but I'm open to that, to a restriction. I understand, I heard what you guys were discussing and very much understand it. If I were to do that, it would only be for operable, like an operable vehicle, not just a junk vehicle or not just junk car storage or something. However, if you would like to put a restriction on that to that degree that you don't want that, then I certainly understand that. My intent, I mean, every house behind it is dilapidated to the point that needs to be torn down. But my intent is to upgrade the property. I don't want to downgrade it. So I want to present a property that is desirable for self-storage. And frankly, my intent, if anything, with the extra land that is there, is to maybe come back in a year or so and maybe add self-storage facility. But I'm very happy with the property just as it is, and I very much understand if you want to put some sort of restriction on it so that it can't be some sort of salvage yard or anything like that. I very much understand that and would agree with it.
Okay. I just have a question for you about the, it's kind of unusual to see a storage lot where the drives aren't paved or anything like that, and so that's why you got the issue with the grass down there. Are you going to do anything with that to, break some gravel in or pave? Or?
I actually already have prices on it. It's unusual. It's actually, as you get out into further into rural areas, I find these things frequently that don't have drives. They'll just have a dirt drive. But my intent, I've actually already been pricing, obviously clearing out the lot, but putting in a gravel drive going around and through to the buildings and through them. There's also going to be some additional terracing of the landscape to avoid water runoff. And in addition, I think maybe I'm opening another can of worms here, but I think it's best that I make the ingress and egress on the side road. The lot is actually on a corner, and I wanted to divert people from entering and exiting straight onto 19 and have the ingress and egress off of the side road. There are actually gates on each side, but I think it would be better and safer just to have the ingress and egress off of the side road.
Anybody else have any comments or concerns? And so, all right. Hearing no other discussion, is there a motion on the rezoning request?
Yeah, I'd like all we doing just the rezoning.
Just the rezoning, and then we'll do the other.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning from R to C2 with the conditions that were suggested by the joint commission of, maintaining the property. But also keeping the condition, or adding another condition to where the use of the property remains the warehouse facility.
Sold.
Sold.
Okay. So I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So a motion was made to approve with the conditions presented by the Joint Planning Commission, which is the removal of the existing office building trailer, the requirement that the grass must be cut and maintained, and adding an additional condition that it not be used as for anything other than a storage facility, building storage facility. Is that right? Am I state that good?
Yeah. Warehouse storage.
Warehouse storage. Okay. That was made by Commissioner Watson, seconded by Commissioner Ellington. Is there any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, and in light of the rezoning request being approved, we have to consider the special exception for the mini warehouse. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the special exception for the mini warehouses, but at any time that any more construction would go on the property, that it come back before the board.
Construction of anything?
New mini warehouses, like adding more mini warehouses.
I'm looking at Mr. Courier.
We're permitting additional or we're prohibiting?
That it's not prohibited, he's just
No.
saying that it would be, that it would come back to the Board of Commissioners should the owner at any time decide to expand the warehouse. You're just concerned about how they would be.
Right. How would they
Lay
fit
it
on
out.
it? It's already, it doesn't fit, commercial right now with the 2 units that are there. I'm fine with the 2 units that are there because they, use them. But if he wants to add more, then he needs to come back and ask.
So you're not saying that you're opposed to not
Oh, no,
adding
no.
anymore.
No, no, no,
This
no.
gentleman
No.
expressed a desire to maybe do at some point.
Right.
You just want to have the opportunity to,
Right.
to
Have
see
have
that.
a site plan
Right.
with, instead of just, boom, hey, here we go.
All right, so he can maintain what he has, but no additional, and are we gonna
And also,
prohibit the vehicles that move? Storage Boats, trailers, et cetera, is that allowed or is that not allowed? 'Cause
That was allowed under the original land rezoning, but now we're in the special exception.
correct.
So under the special exception,
so the recommendation was the same as the other, that the removal of the existing office building trailer, the grass must be cut and maintained.
Right.
And you're adding item 3, that any
Further.
additions to the warehouse
Right.
storage, any updates to the project down there would have to come back for board approval because the lot is undersized.
right.
And do we need a 4th condition prohibiting the storage of boats, trailers, motorcycles, that sort of thing, or are we not doing that? That's, a lot of facilities like this do, as you know, store those sorts of things, so we need to know, is that allowed or is that not allowed?
It's your motion.
I think on the motion we just passed for the rezoning, allowed him to do that. So I'm gonna go with the original motion that was made, that he can store movable, operable equipment, or not equipment, but cars and boats. Tractor
RVs.
trailers, RVs, lease, yeah. So,
Okay.
Properly licensed and tagged,
Right,
that,
right.
that would kind of take care of all
Yep,
that, right?
yep,
That
properly
they have to
licensed
be
and tagged, yep.
roadworthy, properly tagged. Okay,
Not a junkyard.
all right.
That's a good one. So you can translate that.
I see. You have the motion for Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Watson. Okay, so y'all bear with me a second here as I try to restate it. So have a motion to approve the special exception, SPX 2020-02 for a mini warehouse on this location with the conditions that were stated, that the grass is cut and maintained, that the removal of the office building and trailer happens, that any other work down there, adding of any buildings or anything like that, would come back to the Board of Commissioners for a review with the site plan, and that any vehicles, trailers, RVs, those type things that are stored on the lot have to be properly tagged and operable. Did I state that correctly? Okay. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay. Well, sir, we'll get you off the phone. We appreciate your investment in our community and look forward to you cleaning that spot up down there. Hope it works out well for you.
Thanks so much for your time, guys. I look forward to it as well.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is approval, requesting approval of revisions to the development plan for the remnant lots of the Kingdom Zone Hickory Ridge subdivision. So with that, Mr. Bird.
Yes, and we will make 2 phone calls. We have the applicant's representative, who is Mr. Steve Reeves. And then following that, during the public hearing, we have Mr. Mark Pritchett, who is also a property owner in this area, and he has expressed the desire to be part of the public hearing. So first we'll call Mr. Steve Reeves, who is the representative of several of the owners, and he is the surveyor for this property. I hope that you all have your plats, your development plans. Right, excellent. Those are going to be very important for you to have.
Can I ask a question before we start?
Before we open the public hearing.
Zoning, can I speak to Mr. Reeves?
Well,
Not the board of commissioners,
I can't remember
Just wait for them to
Pritchett's
open
name. Mark Pritchett, is he
the public hearing.
going to do a public comment on he is for or against, or is he in with this land development?
He is not part of the 3 owners who initiated this, but he is a landowner in the area, which will become a little more clear when
So he's going to be in the public comments part of
Yes.
the public hearing.
So, yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
He's not an applicant.
All right. So, so with that, we'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay, Steve?
All those in favor? Okay. So, so public comments for this application. Who do we have?
Mr. Steve Reeves, who represents the owners, he's the surveyor. You'll see his name on the development plan that you're looking at.
Okay, Mr. Reeves, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, board members, as Curry said, my name is Steve Reeves, surveyor. I've been working on this project for 7 years with Mr. Scott Last, when we recently bought the property out of foreclosure, the majority of the property there at Hickory Ridge. I think most of you are probably familiar with it. It's changed owners several times through the years here. And currently, Mr. Lassiter, Mr. McGuire, on the property, showing the development plan. And what we're looking to do is basically combine 20 up the remainder of the property. Previously, Mr. Lasky sold the majority of the property to the east of Hickory Drive to Russian Industries, and the remaining property there, the Hickory's development. And we're just basically looking to clean this up, get rid of the lots there that doesn't have road frontage on an existing paved road, combine them into lots that would, have requirements for road front, I think it's development. As I understand, Mr. McGuire, Mr. Pasture, this is going to be used for residential single-family homes, as it's currently out there already. There are basically up to 7 tracks that would be used for an individual home on each track, other than maybe a mother-in-law suite or something like that would be allowed under the Upson County zoning ordinance. That's pretty much it. Like I said, to combine the remaining property to usable areas, facilitate the sale. Mr. McGuire, John McGuire was buying part of the tract, and his brother David was getting the tracts that are shown as more lots 26 and 27, combining those two tracts into one, and then lot 20 was several lots in one lot. We have lot 17 up in the northwest corner, divided in 3 lots. Addition of the previously planted house over there that roads weren't constructed there. And then these are all meeting the county requirements for road frontage for each tract. That's basically it. If you have any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer what I can.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, sir, thank you. Who else do we have?
Mark Pritchett.
Let me just address Mr. Reeves. Mr. Reeves, we will have to leave you for a little while we hear testimony from Mr. Pritchett, but then once we are ready to talk about the plat again, we'll bring you back since you're the applicant.
Okay, that's fine.
We can have both of them?
Yeah, which one?
Okay, we'll wait a
Mark
minute.
Pritchett, the
We're bringing in another phone. You'll note in the report that Mr. Pritchett owns several parcels that are included in the PM zone. And that's a significant thing, where the PM zoning is.
He didn't answer. I'll try one more
I
time.
talked to him this morning, so he had his reminder call.
Ask a quick question while we're waiting for Doug. So, just so I understand this clearly, when this was all under one landowner, it was the PM zoning and it had the restrictions or the requirements for this development plan, but because the 337 acres was rezoned to AR, that eliminated that portion?
Only that portion.
Okay, so now this portion remains under the PM with a requirement for this development plan.
Mr. Pritchett will have an opportunity to speak again to you, and Steve, I apologize, I didn't get to call you ahead of time, so I should have had the time, but I didn't. We are actually, I'll give you the short request for tonight's process, and then we can go into as much detail as you want. I had a lengthy meeting, an hour and a half, with the county attorney, and the only thing that the planning commission had the opportunity to review was this visual portion of the development plan. You'll see in my staff report that we requested within 3 months, this was a condition, that a text basically described the development in text, and that's required. A statement of intent is required, a summary of intent is required in the PM zoning. This was produced, I believe, in a week or two instead of 3 months, although you can see it's extremely brief. And so it doesn't give us a lot of description of what may and may not happen in the PM zoning. So therefore, we are requesting that no vote happen tonight, that you hold the public hearing and keep it open, continue your public hearing until we can basically take this portion of the submittal back to the Planning Commission. They have not had the opportunity to review this. The county attorney and I agree that it needs to go back to them due to the language of the PM zoning ordinance, and then we will bring it back to you. And if you keep your public hearing open, then we don't have to re-advertise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we want to have a public hearing, as much testimony, although we unfortunately didn't get a hold of Mr. Pritchett.
He just texted me and said he's available now.
Okay,
I'll try.
very good. But we will ask that you do as much as you like to tonight, and then we bring the whole thing back to you.
Mr. Pritchett, this is Jason
Planning
calling, Upson
Commission
County
has
Board of Commissioners. Is it okay if I put you on speaker in front of the board? All right. No problem, just 1 second. There you go.
Hey, Mr. Pritchett, Norman Allen, how are you, sir?
Mr. Allen, how are you guys doing?
Good, sir. Okay, you got 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. I am, in light of the conversation with John McGuire, Scott Lassiter, as well as Mr. Doug Courier, just to kind of get a feel for what's going on. I'm in support of what they're asking for with, I guess, a caveat, and that is that they have a viable plan in regards to single-family residents. I think it would probably be good to have, the setbacks that were in the original plan development, so that obviously to protect homeowners and to give some kind of systematic, look from the road. Just simple things like that, I think that would just protect the square footages that people have built within that neighborhood. I know there's only 5 houses in there, but, when John builds and then David McGuire builds, et cetera, I think just to kind of protect that, because I don't think there was any language in there from Mr. Allen with regards to any kind of plan. And when I spoke with Mr. Lassiter, he was, I think we're going to try to put something together. Otherwise, if not, I would just have concern for that.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty simple, not really complex, and I think I told Doug, I don't know if you know this, I actually ended up buying a house in there a few weeks ago, and we closed, of course, and so we're up there, but that's all just that there's some type of, language in there that it doesn't allow for duplexes or whatever, because as I understand it, under just a PM with a blank, they pretty much, can do anything, and I don't think they want that either. But other than that, just something to protect the existing houses, some languages in there with regards to that, single family residence, and nothing else, no other stipulations for me.
Okay. All right, well, it appears that this is not going to happen tonight, but, we've got some more work to do, but you want to go ahead and get your comments on the record. So,
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So much for your time. Thank you guys very much.
And Mr. Chairman, well, I guess you need to close your, well, we're going to keep the public hearing open, aren't we?
Well, does anybody have any other questions? I mean, I got one big one. So if this goes back to the Planning Commission, maybe we can figure this out. Roads, access to these spots. I mean, are they?
Yes, all of them would have direct access to a public street. Now, it might only be 30 feet, but that's the minimum required. For instance, I think specifically that very large 20-acre tract, yes, the only place that it will have access is basically Hickory Ridge road that terminates on that lot. So that would be the only frontage there, although no, on Trent Jones, you'll see a little further down Trent Jones, it also has some access there.
So
There you go, and there's some access for,
it's gonna have access there.
right, so it's got two access points there.
So basically, it's combining the lots to make the lots have access to a currently constructed road. Because all the other roads that are like dotted are not constructed.
Right, those would be eliminated in this change of the plan.
All right.
But
What is the prior, where is the original regulations for this?
Well, and Mr. Reeves can comment, but basically through his thorough investigation as working with this for a very long time and my own over several years here and there working, we have never found a text description of the plan. And Mr. Reeves and I had that discussion when he first approached me. I said, well, if we can't find that, then this is the plan. There's no text to go with it. This is the plan that you have here. We need more. And so we requested, and that was in the Planning Commission's request, that they come back with the summary of intent. And I think the reason why we advised 3 months is maybe they would come with a detailed, basically a new zoning district called Hickory Ridge, mixed use, whatever they wanted to call it. They didn't do that. They came back with this, which I wasn't totally surprised, and that's why the other condition that was recommended, that if we don't have the standards we need through this and through this document, then it defaults to the AR requirements.
I wouldn't default to AR, and then they can just, if they're the majority properties on this, then they can put covenants on it just like every other subdivision in the county. And we're not in the covenant business. I mean, we start telling, minimum square footage, we in our zoning districts, we got that. What other location do we have? Is this,
The PM, none of that I'm aware of.
so we're reinventing, we're creating this now, right?
Well, no, you're continuing. It was created back in '97 or
But it has no
whenever.
substance. There's no plan. I mean, that's.
Well, there's no text plan. And so and again, I think if you put yourself in the mindset of back then, hey, there's a golf course and there's a clubhouse and the paths are built, and so it was clear to everybody what was going to happen. Well, now, of course, we're quite a few years later, and we've got proposals like this, and all that property was removed by Rush Ministries and the church, and that's a whole different thing. Well, now it's not quite evident, the obvious plan. And so now we have this proposal where, exactly as you're sort of pointing out, and I think as Mr. Pritchett said, we got something wide open here. We've got a PM zoning and doesn't tell us much about what's going to happen there. So that's why we had asked for this new summary of intent, and it might have had the detail we're talking about. Since it doesn't, then we need something that does, and that's why the condition would be, you have, as you know, you've got the very short list of setbacks on here, so there's a little bit, and then we've got a description here that says no commercial. Okay, well that's news, because the PM zoning would allow commercial. That's the idea. It's supposed to, the M is mixed use. However, if we make this a commitment, or we condition this is a requirement, this is a requirement, and then with the default that anything, and this is the example I used with the county attorney day, okay, if they come in with, they want to put 3 sheds in the yard. Well, we have no guidelines in PM, where do the sheds go? We do an AR and of the other zoning districts, but we don't have it here because we don't have that level of detail. So the condition that we would suggest is that when we don't have a standard, we just default to AR. The question was, and I guess Mr. Reeves may be able to answer this better than I can, okay, well, why don't you just rezone everything back to AR? You've got, everything fits, it works. And I guess, I think the only answer that Mr. Reeves gave me was he thought, well, maybe they thought that would take a lot longer. And so they wouldn't rezone back to AR, but I think that's still an option. It's a matter of whether they want to do that or not.
Yeah, that's
The clearest option is I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, if it meets AR, the lot sizes meet, and meet AR, we zone it AR, and and then they can draw up their own, covenants on that, which is enforceable not through this body, you know,
Well,
and,
who is they? I guess that's what I'm
That's what, that was my.
the group of
An association,
property owners.
homeowners association or
But
something.
there probably isn't one, is there?
I would,
Be up to
not
them
now.
to create it, because that was my concern, is, I mean, I understand Mr. Pridgett, you know, his concerns, limited square footage, but I don't think we need to say, oh, your houses need to be X number of square feet. That needs to be an association type of, you know, decision, not ours. And that's what I was gonna ask, is, one, I understand the concerns, but I don't know, I don't think we can require an association, some type of homeowners association, so that would be on them to collectively come up with. But if they had that in the text, that would eliminate Mr. Pritchett's concerns.
Well, and that's a path, either encourage them and they can choose to rezone. I suppose you could choose to rezone it for them. That's always an option. Now, there's a lot of property owners and you have to decide for them which ones that you would be doing, and that may be a whole different thing. You know, you're imposing a zoning rather than them asking for one. And the other thing I need to make clear that I don't think was clear when Mr. Reeves and I started this, and maybe even to some of the applicants, if you want to call them that, they're all in this together. It's not just these three applicants. The PM is all together. This is the remnant of Hickory Ridge. I think there's sort of a either ignoring or an ignorance that these other 12 parcels that you don't see on your plan are included in this. And that's, Mr. Pritchett is right to be concerned and part of this because he's one of those property owners. There are several others, I believe 5 other property owners. Again, there's basically, you have Trent Jones here. Well, all of these property, there's 12 parcels that are, we'll call them the south and the west side. They're included in the PM. Now, they're not part of the 3 that are making these changes, but they would be included in anything we would impose, whether that's a rezoning or conditions of approval of a new development plan.
And so if one of those people, well, that don't currently own one of these lots over here, decides they want to do something that would fall under the PM, that since there's no stipulations to it, then they're not having an opportunity to come and say, hey, we're basically rezoning restrictions, their property, and they may not understand that.
Well, there is a big yellow sign there that I'm sure that might be how Mr. Pritchett found out about this. So there's the opportunity for anybody, and of course a lot of that land's not developed, so they may not even visit that property.
Right, well, with that, in fact, if you don't put that yellow sign in my front yard, I don't know if it's impacting my property. I know it's impacting the property where the yellow sign's at, but I don't know it's impacting my property unless it's in my yard.
So clearly, kicking this back to the planning commission is the appropriate thing to do at this point, because you had too many unanswered questions, and we had too many unanswered questions, and I'm sure planning commission does as well. So I guess at this point, we won't close the public hearing. We just motion to continue this public hearing at our.
Well, it would be the meeting after the second Monday of September, so whatever that date would be. We could have it your very next day, because the public hearing is open.
So it won't be at our next meeting.
It would be for your first meeting after the
First meeting in September.
Yes.
So is there a motion to continue the public hearing until our first regular scheduled meeting?
I'll make a motion that we continue till the planning commission finishes, in case they don't finish in one night.
Continue until we have.
So the planning commission, you can just say indefinitely.
Yeah.
Continue indefinitely.
Okay, that's good, thank you. So your motion is to continue this public hearing indefinitely until we have a recommendation from the planning
Right,
commission.
that's right.
Is there a second? Okay, just basically all those in favor, we'll just do it. So it's a 5-0 vote to continue, Jessica.
Mr. Reeves, are you still there?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm here.
All right, do you have any questions or comments?
No, just want to get started with building permits. Part of the reason for not rezoning to AR was 3 lots, lots 30 or 29 and 34 are, the same as they are, they're the exact same lots that were laid out on the original plan. We didn't change those lots in, so if we rezone those to AR, we have to change the configuration on those lots to meet the AR standards, so that was the main reason.
It would be
not,
bigger.
rezoning this property to AR there, so.
Okay,
that's what-
well, sounds like you got some work to do.
That was 29 and 34.
29, 30, and 34. Okay.
Okay. All right, so public hearing is closed. Thank you for your time, sir.
Not
Well,
close.
it's continued.
Thank you for your.
Yeah, continued, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. Thank you. I'll work through there. So is there a sense of urgency because somebody's trying to get some building started up there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Here's what it is. All right, next on the agenda are public comments, and Jason, I think you said we have one.
Yes, Chairman Allen, I have one public comment, and that is from a John Booker, and it's regarding the name of the building that we're in. His comment is he attended RLE for years. He would like for it to retain its name, RLE, or have an election so people can vote on it. And then the second comment he had was there's other things to be done. And that was the only comment we had for tonight.
Okay. We'll move along next. Then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda for tonight, we have the regular meeting minutes from July 28th, the acceptance of the June 2020 financials, and the acceptance of the updated census report you have in the package. Is there a motion on the consent?
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Ellington, seconded by Commissioner Jones. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, new business. Consideration and approval of an infrastructure grant agreement with Cater Parrot RailNet. And Jason, if you just kind of step us through.
Sure, Chairman
This
Allen.
has been a lot of work has gone into this to get us to this point, so.
Well, and I am somewhat ashamed to tell you, this is almost a 2-year project in the making. Obviously, a lot of moving parts and a lot of discussions, but the board may remember months and months back, you had authorized myself and our representatives from English Law Group to try to come to terms on a revised agreement with what has now become Cater Parrot Railroad for the crossing at Quad Graphics, which on some maps is shown as DuPlainville Road. And as I have reported in the past to the board, we were able to negotiate a revised arrangement with them in which we would provide funding to the Industrial Development Authority, a one-time amount of funding that would be sufficient to rehab that crossing. And we would provide that to the Development Authority, and they would they would turn around and offer that as a grant to the railroad so that they could do the work on the crossing themselves. And what you have in front of you is a draft agreement that was drafted by the county attorney that essentially states what I have just said and also speaks to the severance of all the other existing agreements. So essentially what it would do is provide for an $80,000 grant to the IDA, which the IDA would then in turn authorize that infrastructure grant to the railroad for the rehab of that crossing. And then in exchange for that, the railroad would release us from any and all existing arrangements previously done. So this draft is obviously reviewed and approved by our legal staff. It has been in the hands of the IDA's attorneys for weeks. I still don't have a firm response for them, yea or nay, and our attorneys that are on the call may have an update on that. But I had asked Keith specifically for permission to go ahead and put it on y'all's agenda, because this is one item that's been outstanding with our industrial clients at Quad Graphics, and as the board is well aware, there's been some malfunctions with that crossing that has caused some unique safety situations. It's shift change, so it's something that's been that we've been struggling to try to address so that our folks at Quad can continue to operate safely. So we felt that it was prudent just to go ahead and get it in front of you and get it adopted, and then we're at least able to say that the board reviewed, approved, and we've done our due diligence on this. So yeah, I know it comes with a recommendation of approval from English Law Group. Like I said, only they can speak to whether or not they've heard from the IDA's attorneys. I did extend to some representatives at Quad Graphics and the representatives from the railroad that we were going to have this on the agenda. They were very excited to get moving. So this is our recommendation to the board from myself and from English Law Group to approve tonight and move forward.
Hey, Mr. English, if you can hear me, do you have an update from the IDA attorney on this? You might be muted. Okay. We'll table that question until maybe you'll come back on here in a minute and you can answer it then. So but the bottom line is, you know, we've done our due diligence trying to clean up a lot of old agreements that were very ambiguous, I guess would be a good term for them.
Yes.
And the bottom line is we've got a safety issue out there. So this cleans it up. It's a one and done for the county on it, and it has to go through the IDA because it is a grant. So anyway, so is there a motion? So staff's recommending approval of this. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this transaction, but I want to ask a question when it gets seconded.
All right. So I have a motion to approve the infrastructure grant agreement. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ellington. Any questions?
Yes.
Comments?
So what does this, I know once we hand it over to IDA, it's out of our hands, right? What are the improvements they're planning?
None of the signalization works properly there. So there's essentially two components to the rehab, to the best I understand. You know, it's an at-grade crossing and it's in poor condition, so it's tough to navigate in standard vehicles. So it's not a smooth transition from the Plainville Road onto the state route because of the degradation of the surface.
And the railroad tie.
And then the signalization is basically, I mean, in Tennessee terms, busted. So this is to rehab both the surface and the signalization. It's my understanding that they were actually going to potentially remove the arms and just go to a light signal. But in essence, this puts that in the hands of the railroad. In the end, they'll be the ones that make the determination as to what exactly will happen.
But there's no way to make them make it a smooth crossing and not, you know, like they did over there in Barnesville.
Yeah, this is a unique situation. I've not had an experience where I've had a maintenance agreement on a crossing. Usually, in situations like that, even if the crossing is created at the county's request or at the IDA's request, the funding is provided for it, but it still is maintained or is ownership and maintenance is retained by the railroad. This has just been a unique situation. And even under the original agreement, the railroad was still responsible for the maintenance of it. We were just responsible for the funding of the maintenance. So, just as a quick refresher, under that old agreement, both parties were they're in violation of that agreement essentially. So, they never did any maintenance on it. That original agreement required them to do the maintenance and then bill us for that maintenance. So the maintenance was never done. We never received a bill, therefore we never paid. And this just rearranges that agreement and gets this sort of in line with all the other crossings that are on that short line. So.
And so, when this is done, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
We're done with that crossing.
Well, they can't come back in 15 years and say, oh, we gotta put some new signals up.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
I got a
Yes, sir.
question. So, we got a motion to approve to fund the IDA, basically, this funding. Obviously, I don't really know what's going on with IDA and their legal counsel, but how long is it going to take for these funds to get to where it needs to go? Do we know that? Or are we just going to write a check to the IDA? We're going to be getting phone calls 6 months from now if this hasn't been settled?
This specific agreement requires them to acknowledge it, so they would have to vote on and acknowledge it. They would actually sign this agreement, and then we wouldn't release the funds to them until they approved it.
Until all parties have signed it.
Right. It's three parties, and now, and I don't want to speak to too much of the legalese. It's my understanding that technically the IDA is not party to the agreement. They're simply acknowledging the agreement between us and the railroad. Again, that was a discussion that was between the two attorneys.
Any other questions or discussion? So I have a motion to approve the proposed infrastructure grant agreement between Upson County, Cato Parrott, and the Upson County Construction Development Authority. Hearing no other discussion, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. And and you guys look back on this, I don't want to leave this, and we're talking about this one road crossing, but there are a lot of road crossings out there that cross our county system. They're getting bad, and I don't know. Well, I guess I do know. We've got to get those guys out there helping us. And was it Eastmore's Crossing Road? That one's pretty bad. I mean, if you cross it, it's rough shape. So if we get them working on this one, maybe they'll work on the other ones as well. I mean, they have to maintain those crossings, right? I mean,
Correct.
You know,
Or they're supposed to.
well,
Correct.
I'm just kind of curious as to what our recourse would be. We reached out to them and said, hey, you need to fix this crossing. I don't know if we can give them a deadline they have to do it by or what. I mean, those cross ties that are in some of those crossings are just absolutely rotted. So anyway, it's still a great asset for us to have, though. All right, next on the agenda is the consideration and approval on a land lease agreement for Pasture and Hayfield surrounding the Upson County Road Department and Forestry Unit. And if we could, I know we had planned to discuss one agreement that was presented to us, but you know, we're all aware that we have another agreement in the works. So what we would like to do tonight is basically review the terms of these agreements and take them, in the interest of getting this moving and keeping it going, is we would agree to the terms and with the board's permission that give me the approval, the authority to execute the agreements once we have vetted these agreements through our attorney. So what you have here is in your package, you've got the lease agreement that we received as a draft from Will Bentley. I think we've all had a chance to look at it. And, you've got it's an 18-acre pasture east of the road department, a 5-acre Hayfield west surrounding the Forestry unit. Approximate address is 2440 Yatesville Highway. Terms of the agreement would have to be modified because the state has already gone by us, but you see the offer is $25 per acre for an annual term of $575. Jason, did I leave anything out on this that you need to?
I think on the separate agreement that would be on the property located in and around the animal shelter on the other side of the road, the same would apply. Would be the 25 per acre on the pasture land, but the difference would be there's a wooded area on that property, and the proposal is for $14 an acre for the wooded area. And so on that particular lease, it would be roughly 25.5 acres of woodland and about 21 acres of hayfield. And then as the attachment or the description of the leased area, if you'll see on the back of that single sheet, is the Google map that actually Commissioner Jones provided for us.
Great job.
Is Pascal online?
Pascal, are you online now?
He's on, but for some reason it's not, we can't hear him when he unmutes his phone.
Yeah, it's showing up at his.
Pascal.
Jessica, do you want me to call him and just
Yes,
put him on speaker?
Yeah, probably just.
That may be the best thing now, Jason, because we can't hear him when he's unmuted.
I had one question for him.
Okay, hold on, I'll call him.
Do you have it there?
Yes.
Okay. He did text me. He said I unmuted and answered that we have heard nothing from the IDA attorney on the draft of that infrastructure agreement we just discussed. He doesn't know why we can't hear him.
Continue to do that.
And the other, I don't know.
That's okay. Do you mind if I just put you on speaker here on my phone? And everyone should be able to hear you fine that way. All right. All right.
20 years later.
You're on, sir.
Okay, I tried to unmute my phone, but I answered that we county attorneys have not heard a thing from the IDA attorney.
Tell him to turn his YouTube feed on.
He said, Jason suggested you turn your YouTube video off. There you go. All right, so yeah, we got the info on the infrastructure grant agreement we were talking about. Okay, Commissioner Jones had a question for you.
Have you had time to look at this lease agreement that Will Bentley has proposed?
But Pastor, I don't think you heard, but Commissioner Jones was asking, have you had an opportunity to look at this proposed lease agreement from Will Bentley?
I've looked at it, I haven't really studied it. Am I supposed to be answering into my phone or just hang my phone up or what?
No, answer your phone and hang up your YouTube.
Turn the YouTube off.
I ain't got a YouTube on.
Or your computer.
No, I don't think I've got on the Zoom.
I'll turn off the Zoom. We'll have it here. Or maybe our network engineer can do something on this end.
Thank you.
That sounds a lot better there. All right,
I lost your picture, but that's fine.
that's okay. You're not missing much.
The answer to the question, Mr. idea who he was, and when he handed it to me, I said, you know, I can't review this without the approval of the county. So, shortly thereafter, the chairman and I had a meeting on something else, and I brought it to his attention, and I think, if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but I think the information was that Jason already had a copy of the lease, and he was looking at it. I've not looked at it in detail. I'd be glad to. I mean, I don't think I kind of just looked at it real quickly just to see what it was, but I was not going to, you know, look at it in detail without some direction from the board, because obviously people walk in and say, you need to do this on behalf of the county. I don't do that.
Right, we appreciate that. So,
Yeah, I was just, you know, I guess down the road, we can look at it after we do what we're gonna do with it, and then if there's
I'd be
something,
glad to look at it anytime. I mean,
if there's something that doesn't match, then we can go back, I guess,
Okay.
right?
so what we're discussing now, Pascal, is that we, and I don't know if you heard that, is we're we're having a conversation about the terms, because we actually have another, interested party on property across the highway from it that we're considering. So what we're trying to do now is agree to the terms and hopefully have the authority to move forward with this once you have time to review a lease agreement, help us draft up a lease agreement with this other property. So,
sure. I can certainly swing by there tomorrow and pick up
okay,
a copy of the lease and look at it, and then whatever, you know, you or Jason decide y'all need for me to do, I'll be glad to do.
okay.
Did you get an answer on the earlier question that was posed about the agreement to the IDA as far as sending it to the IDA, whether or not we'd heard anything about it?
Yes, sir. I shared that.
Okay.
I got your answer, and I shared that. Okay. So where we're at right now, so, as is, terms, I mean, if is it something you're amiable to,
I'm good,
moving forward with?
Yep.
So in the interest of getting this done. So you have what was presented as, length of it. I mean, this one does say
20 years,
20 years. That's
that's a long time.
That's, we can't legally bind, it has to be an annual.
Is there a clause of,
It can annually renew, or you can have severability. You pass what you definitely go over that.
That'll be an issue, and I understand what they're trying to do with it.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
my recommendation, if the board wanted to move forward, would just to have two separate motions that would say what the basic terms were, or you can even just refer to the draft that's in your packet. So a motion could be something like, motion to approve the draft agreement pending review by English Law Group, authorize the chairman to execute, and you could do that for each one.
Okay. And you've heard the staff's recommendation on how to word the motion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that let's do it one at a time.
Yeah.
All right. The original Will Bentley is to approve the acceptance of this lease agreement pending the advice of our legal counsel that everything is correct in here, and that making sure that the term of the lease is not 20 years.
That is within the scope of our
Right.
legal authority to do so.
Annually renew.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a motion from Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
I say that.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilder. Is there any more discussion? Okay, I have a motion to move forward with this lease agreement for Mr. Bentley on the land out there at 2440, pending the review and approval of the authorizing me to execute the lease agreement once we have a review from the legal. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, and you heard the recommendation from Jason on this one as well. Chair, will entertain a motion on this one.
I'd like a motion to accept with the same terms across the road at the animal shelter. A new lease agreement to be vetted by our attorney with same terms.
Okay, and just for the, I guess for the record, we probably need to say who this is with.
Mr. Bridges?
Mr. Bridges.
Are those terms gonna be as he stated, or are they gonna be
Well, what I've got here
different
is
price?
Oh, well, as stated, as what Jason stated, where the open land was $25 an acre and the wooded area was $14 an acre.
and
I
the
think
fee
the
would be
total sum-
$882.
Yeah, 800 and something.
$882.
Right.
Okay. So I have a motion from Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So I have motion made and seconded to authorize me to execute a lease agreement with Mr. Bridges for this land for $14 an acre for the 25 acres of woods and $25 an acre for the 21 acres of pasture in Hayfield for an annual fee of $882, pending a review from the English Law Group on the lease. And Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Ellington,
I like to abstain from this vote. Mr. Bridges is a business partner of mine, and I feel like that'd be a conflict of interest if I'm to vote.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. All right, gentlemen, that's pretty much it. Time for comments. Mr. Ames, we'll start with you. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm sorry for the, I don't know if it's my technical inabilities or whatever, but I'm sorry for the confusion.
There was no confusion at all. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank
All
you.
right. Jason.
Chairman Allen, just 2 items. I don't think, I know I talked to a couple of commissioners before we started the meeting this afternoon, but we did have a 10 a.m. bid opening for the maintenance shop reconstruction project. We were in receipt of 5 bids, and the apparent low bid from a group called Pro Construction of Macon was in the amount of $579,563, which was roughly 60,000-70,000 below EMC estimates. So we feel very blessed to have that high level of participation, and look forward to reviewing those bids thoroughly, and then hopefully having that on your August 25th meeting for award, pending review of all the documentation. But the bid span, and those 5 bids span anywhere between there and 1.13 million, but there were 3 bids that were actually very close between, let's say, the low bid and 698, and there was some local participation as well. So we're thankful to all those firms that were interested in the work, and we look forward to getting this project started. And I did want to, and I don't want to cut our attorney off of the meeting. I anticipated being able to read you an email from my phone, but as you all know, we've been affected on and off lately with some of our staffers, and I won't go into details about our staffers having to be out, some of them COVID positive. But we've had a lot of people step up to try to chip in with some departments that have been depleted because of the folks having to stay at home and quarantine with a positive test. And I got a very lovely note from our recreation director, Mindy, who was ranting and raving about Cherise Spillers, who basically has been splitting time between the admin office and the recreation department. She helped them through all the registration. I mean, she's souped enough. She's been over there just trying to fill in where we've had 4 staffers that are out at one of our most critical times where we're trying to do an in-person registration during a pandemic. So she's really stepped up. I just felt like, you know, we don't take enough time to recognize some of our employees that are going above and beyond. And Mindy sent me that email today, and I did not do that email justice. I would have preferred to have read it, but I will forward it to all y'all, and just with a sincere thanks from myself and all of her other team members. You know, she really just jumped in and helped another department when they were really feeling the COVID-19 pitch, and we really appreciate her and everybody else that has been stepping up lately to try to chip in and help out. But I wanted to mention her specifically.
Yeah, and I'd like to take advantage of the time that we're on that topic to call out the young ladies who are taking care of disinfecting all our offices. I mean, you know, I noted to Jason the other day that I don't think the place has ever been this clean, and appreciate their efforts. I mean, I know it's not just those two, it's Seth and Phil and all of them. You know, and Phil had to respond this weekend. We had an air conditioner casualty here in this building, and we had the 2-act thing going on, so they responded and took care of that. So yeah, our staff is doing a tremendous job. I mean, all of you are. Appreciate that.
And Mr. Chairman, while we're on that, if I may add one more thing. Speaking of the AC being out, your staff really stepped up and showed up to work and took care of the county's business, even though it was 85 degrees in here. So, and so did also your planning commission in a marathon meeting last night. Sat right where you're sitting in an 85-degree room with some of these staffers back here. So, I'm really proud to be a member of this team. We don't do a lot of complaining, we just get a lot done. So
I'm sure Doug didn't sabotage the system to try to finish one meeting last night.
Anyway, thank you.
No, thank you. All right. Hey, you mentioned the registration at Civic Center. Can you give us an idea how that's going?
Without looking at the notes, I do have some notes from registration. It looks like we might be able to do a couple of soccer teams. Registration was pretty low. I don't want to give you the exact numbers, but it looks like we would have enough to maybe do some kind of, for football we had batted around the idea of maybe doing an in-house camp. Our football league has basically canceled everything for the fall. So the thought was we'd at least try to register, and then if there were other communities that were interested in trying to play games, that we would try to organize something outside of the league, which we don't have an availability for. But now the thought is we might just offer football as a camp. So that's in the works right now, and some of our athletic coordinators who are at home with COVID-19 are working on those plans right now. So there's a potential to maybe play some competitive soccer, but that's kind of looking like where we're at. And we might be able also to do some in-house games with flag football for the younger ones if they're interested. But our numbers were pretty low. And even after we did the registration, we've had a few people pulling out even since then. But
do you know the age groups for the soccer?
I do not. I have it, but I can give it to you immediately after the meeting.
And then, so that was a soft registration. Do we think it's going to scale back even more once we trigger the payments?
It probably will. It's scaling back already even before we've accepted the payments. But I say that staff is dedicated to try to doing something for the youth. I know that we often don't think about how the young people are affected by this massive change. And obviously, I know that some of you think about it because you have children that are at home and bugging the snot out of you. So again, I applaud the staff for trying to put something together, and at the same time do it with all kinds of modified rules and extra cleanliness and trying to keep people at a safe distance. And it's difficult, but they're up for the challenge, and I'm proud of them for trying.
The Civic Center opens when?
That's tomorrow or
Tomorrow.
Thursday. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah.
For what?
For meetings of less than 50.
All right.
with masks and social distancing. Masks highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
Mhm.
Not furnished.
Okay.
Can I ask Jason a question? All right, so we got bids for the road department.
Yes,
What's the next step?
award. That will be here August 2015.
And the term is what, they start?
120-day contract once y'all approve it, so they have to turn around 120 days. And there are liquidated damages for over, and we can cover that with you when we approve the contract.
I got something I want to bring up to you guys. I had a conversation with Sheriff Kilgore today. He's got a document that we have to approve at our next meeting, but it's the DOT radar certification for our sheriff's department to go out. And so in the course of our conversation, I've had two conversations in the last, I don't know, say 60 days about the speed limit on Delray. Jeff Davis, you know, if you look at Jeff Davis, it's a very similar road, but you know, it starts out at 35, and then once you get out past probably the bridge, it goes up to 45, and when you're out towards Crest, it's actually 55. Delray is 55 starting to go, and my concern is I think there's a lot more traffic on that road, and you know, especially with the build out at Logan's Landing. And if you've ever come out of the road there at Logan's Landing, it's kind of in a curve. So if you figure a speed limit of 55, factor it by 10 miles an hour over, you know, you could potentially have folks running, you know, 65, 70 miles an hour. So if we were ever going to talk about lowering the speed limit out there the right way, to where it goes through this process where we have to get an engineering firm, it's a process, always a process. Engineers got to go out there, they got to look at crash data, they got to look at numbers of driveways, they got to look at traffic count, and come up with a data-driven recommendation for a speed limit. I would just like, over the next week or two, I don't want to open up Pandora's box and go out here and look at 505 roads and look at speed limits, but I'm just saying that one in particular, it's got my attention, and I don't know how y'all feel about that. But, you know, we don't have to talk about it tonight, but I'm gonna get with Jason and the sheriff and reach out to the DOT folks and find out what we have to do to at least look at that. So,
Well, I got a comment.
yeah.
I travel that road a lot. And, you know, I think maybe, I don't know if we have to pay for a study or whatever, you know, I don't know how many accidents have been on the road. I don't know, we just have to talk about it.
There's certain areas where there's a lot more density
Right.
than others, so it might be a spot that just needs to slow it down a little bit. So, I'm just concerned about the growth that we're seeing over there. All right, that's all I got. Mr. Wilder,
I don't have anything, sir.
Mr. Elton, glad to see you back here in person.
Sir.
I just want to kind of echo on what y'all already said. If the staff, you know, working through these times, it can be difficult. I know in my professional business, I know it's difficult. And I know me personally, it was difficult to kind of deal with the COVID situation, even when you don't feel bad. But you know, I appreciate what staff is doing to keep things rolling. And still everybody working out, we got to go home and be safe. They understand that we got to keep this county functioning. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the staff. I appreciate your leadership to help keep that going. I like to, maybe she was here last time and I couldn't attend, but I'm assuming you're the intern.
I am the intern.
The intern's about to leave.
Yes, sir.
You did a great job tonight.
Thank you.
I think we're fortunate to have someone like you. And I'm assuming you're going to go into this field, so maybe you'll look at the area like Thomaston, Upson County specifically, one day when you reach that time.
Thank you, man. Mr. Watson.
obviously echo what they said about staff. I'm kind of up here a lot more now that I have a little one that's constantly at home. I'm kind of now a part of the staff, so they do a great job. I mean, they're here first thing and jumping right on it, so I would definitely like to echo what y'all have already said. That's it.
Commissioner Jones?
Just appreciate everybody looking and everybody that came, and I do want to ask Doug a question, if I can. When's the next intern?
For masters in planning and public administration or this type of field, it's normally between their first and second year master's, so it's almost always summer. So it would be another year, March or April of next year.
Okay, I think an intern is pretty successful in your office.
I hope so.
You know, I think, if we can keep that going, because God knows y'all need the help.
1, 2, 3, turns, right?
Yeah.
And other than that, I appreciate Dave and everybody else. That's
Well,
it.
hey, I don't want to ignore I want to close by not ignoring the elephant that's in our community right now, and just basically say that, the city council has got this issue before it about, this building's name and some of the artifacts in this building, and maybe a couple other little issues. And they reached out to us today, just before this meeting, asking us to formally join them in a joint meeting, joint town hall. We all agreed that we thought the approach to this from the onset was, this whole idea, this momentum started, quite frankly, with a couple of city council members and maybe some others. And we said, this is your issue. You decide what you want to do as a body. And then when you decide collectively as a body, then we'll engage. But that doesn't mean that we are immune to the conversations that are happening in our community. We're all getting phone calls, we're all getting emails, we're all engaged in discussions, and we understand all sides of this issue. So we're not ignoring the issue. We just want that body to decide that that's where this seems to be percolating from, when they decide. Because, and I'm not going to speak for anybody up here, and y'all can certainly reclaim your time if you want to, using that term. But, I know how hard it is for us sometimes as a body of 5 at some of our retreats when we talk about some contentious issues and reaching a consensus and an agreement when you have people that do this kind of work. We're all usually type A personalities. And so I think when you have a group of 11 people that are driven the same way, it's really hard to get to the nuts and bolts of it. So I'm of the opinion, Norman Allen's opinion is, small working groups such as the city council, they decide where they want that issue is going in their community, and then then based on that, then we'll have it. But I think all of us are all open to receiving calls, receiving emails. I mean, we're getting them, and we do not have our heads in the sand on this issue. And I just wanted to make that clear. And I didn't want to speak for anybody else, but if I did, you're welcome. If you want to say something, you can certainly say something on that. So, with that, any final thoughts or comments? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We're adjourned. Good week.
So we got another 2.5 hours for, at least you're not going to worry about any more of those.
It was well documented on YouTube.
Oh, I asked her if she's going to watch some of these things that she started, and they won't get to finish.
We all here?
I feel like
I mean, she won't attend another planning commission.